Hey everyone, I'm NoBS. Hopefully you've been following along with my video series talking about some of the technical elements of different speakers and different surround sound system types. Today I wanted to take a few steps back and dive into some of the more basic steps if you're looking to design your own audio system. I think it's really important that you figure out what your end goal is so that you can buy things accordingly and maybe even upgrade over time. Audio is an expensive hobby, and one of the worst things in any hobby is buying the wrong equipment and then having to sell it or buy something else to replace it. So today I wanted to help you try and avoid some of that pain and explain what you should really be looking for before you start emptying your bank account for a new audio system. Let's go ahead and dig into it. If you're not already familiar with things like different surround sound types and Dolby Atmos, I really recommend you go back and check out my overview video where I explain this stuff in more detail. The point of today's video is really to keep things a little bit more simple and talk about the process that you're going to want to go through with designing your own system. It's really important to nail down if you want to have something like a 3.1 channel system or crazy 7.1.4. All this is really going to feed into how much you should be planning to spend and what kind of receiver or amplifier you should get for your needs. Now you might be asking yourself, what is a receiver? What is an amplifier? And I want to answer that by taking a step back. In the audio world, most of the speakers that we talk about are considered passive. We don't call them that because they're quiet and don't like to make a fuss. It actually just means that they have a spot on the back where you connect two wires. Those wires carry a signal from an amplifier so that the speakers can make sound. They need to be connected to an amplifier in order to produce audio. There are also what are called powered speakers out there, like these. These are some edifiers that I have laying around. The difference with these guys is that they have an amplifier built in already. So you don't need to buy anything extra. You just have one where the amplifier is built in and then those connect to the other speaker. These can be a great option if you're looking to cut down on wires or maybe use them at a desk setup, but they are a lot less flexible because you can only use two speakers, maybe a subwoofer. You also tend to pay a good bit more for the quality that you get, and there's just a lot less options out there. Anyways, an amplifier can look a little something like this. Amplifiers tend to be small and pretty affordable. They can offer pretty good power output, but they usually only power up to 2 channels and maybe a subwoofer. These are a really great option if you're pretty committed to only using 2 speakers and maybe adding a subwoofer in the future, and they are a lot cheaper. The downside is that they don't have nearly as much flexibility for inputs and outputs. As I mentioned, you can't power more than 2 speakers with them most of the time, and they usually only have something like RCA inputs and a headphone jack. So that's really going to limit your flexibility if you want to use them at a TV. There are a lot of really affordable amplifiers out there that you can get for $20, $30, $40, but I really recommend spending a little bit more and buying a known brand that people have had good experience with. Some personal recommendations that I could give would be Fozzy Audio, Ayuma, and a Rillick. A cheap amplifier will do the job, but it's worth just spending a little bit extra and getting something that you're actually going to enjoy that probably is going to have more power and less distortion. There's plenty of great amplifiers out there that maybe only cost $100 or less. How much you spend is really just more dependent on how much power you want and if you want extra features like room EQ and an app that connects with the amplifier. Now, receivers are basically an amplifier with a ton of extra features. These are really designed to be used with a TV and handle multiple inputs, things like surround sound systems, multiple subwoofers. There's just a ton of stuff packed in here. Looking at the back of one of these can be a little bit intimidating because there's just so much going on, but really what this does is help simplify everything. You basically have one HDMI cord that hooks up to your TV, and then you can often have 4 or more devices that can pass through there, which will play all the audio through all your speakers, and you can easily switch between them with the remote that these often come with. If you want any kind of home theater surround sound system in the future, I really recommend that you bite the bullet and just buy one of these up front. The most important things to look for are that it just handles the amount of outputs that you want for speakers. This is a 5.2 system, so it handles 5 channels and 2 subwoofers. You can get 9, 7, Dolby Atmos, like 7.2.4 systems. Just make sure that you're buying what you're actually needing. You can also pay a little bit extra for other features like room correction, Wi-Fi streaming, stuff like that. And that's all going to be a little bit more expensive. So just be honest with yourself and think about the features that you really want. A budget or more entry-level receiver like the one I have here can be had for between $300 and $400. You can also often find these on sales for less. I think I paid $175 for this one, which was a really great deal. If you're looking to get something that's a little bit more premium, handles multiple speakers, and has some of those features I talked about, you can expect to pay over $500, well over $1,000 if you want something that does everything. If all that is sounding way too expensive for you right now, what you can do is find an older amplifier on somewhere like eBay. There are tons of amplifiers out there that are a fraction of that cost, and often what you'll mostly be missing out on is newer features. You're not going to find Wi-Fi streaming. They may not handle 4K pass-through, so your TV won't display in 4K through these inputs. But if you shop carefully, you could get a good one of these for about $100. If you do want to buy a used receiver somewhere like eBay or Facebook Marketplace, I mostly just recommend that you stick with some trusted brands like Sony, Denon, Onkyo, and Yamaha. Now, just to recap, I recommend something like one of these mini amplifiers if all you're looking to do is listen to music. If you have a record player, maybe you like CDs, or even if you're just using speakers at your computer, you want to get pretty good sound. These are a really awesome option. They have enough power to get most speakers plenty loud, basic input, but they're a lot smaller and they offer a great value. Spend between $50 and $100 for a lot of good options, and like I said, more if you want more features. Receivers are great if you have any plans of having any kind of home theater or elevated TV or movie watching experience. You can hook up an amplifier to a TV through the headphone jack or optical or something like that, but it's kind of fussy. Some TVs will let you adjust the volume with your remote, but not all of them do, and if it doesn't come with a remote, then you're getting up every time you want to adjust the sound, which gets real annoying real quick. A receiver, on the other hand, is going to have a remote. Often it will sync up with your TV, so you can just use your regular TV remote to adjust volume, as well as supporting lots more speakers, way more capabilities to upgrade, and handling a whackload of inputs that you might want to listen to when you're in front of your TV. So I know there's a pretty big cost difference between these two, but there is a lot of extra value that you get, and one of these will last you a very long time. It's pretty uncommon for these to fail, and that's also why you could still buy some that were made in the 80s. Whether you choose to buy an amplifier or a receiver, I wanted to cover one of the biggest misconceptions in the audio industry. If you've started to do any sort of research on amplifiers yet, you might have noticed that wattage is prominently displayed on almost every product. And that makes sense because more wattage is better than less wattage. Except that's not really true. See, this is one of the most commonly held misconceptions that people have about this hobby. Having more wattage does make a speaker louder, but that's not the whole story. A lot of manufacturers notoriously overrate the amount of power that an amplifier can actually put out, and frankly, only 70 watts or so is plenty for most speakers in most rooms. A lot of bookshelf speakers can't even handle more than 75 watts or so anyways, and you do not want to go past that or else you're going to start damaging stuff. The more important thing if you want really good audio clarity is distortion. Some manufacturers will increase the amount of power that they can output, which sacrifices more distortion, and that's going to sound really, really bad. So if you're curious about buying an amplifier that has really great performance, I recommend checking out Audio Science Review, who's done tests on a ton of different amplifiers from different manufacturers. Aaron's Audio Corner has recently started doing the same kind of thing, so I recommend checking him out. He's got some different reviews. Both of those are fantastic resources if you're interested in getting a great deal that you know performs well. Now, I know I've already covered a lot of information today, and I don't want this video to drag on or miss out on any details, so I've decided to split this up into a few different parts. If you've enjoyed the information I've covered so far, please hit the subscribe button so you can see what I'm going to be talking about soon. I plan on covering more about things like speaker placement, how to work with different rooms to get the best sound, and some basic setup once you have all your parts together and you want to make sure that they perform well. With all that said, I'm No BS, and I will see you soon.